If you live anywhere like the UK, then you're probably used to riding in some pretty horrible conditions. But here's some tips on how to get ready for riding in the worst of those conditions and get yourself mud ready. Definitely some things you can do to your bike before you get out on the trails to make it mud ready. And one of the most important things, I think, is mud tyres. They can make your bike just ride so much better in the mud. So the biggest difference between a normal tyre, what we call a dry tyre, and a mud one, is that the tread is probably going to be deeper, so sort of taller knobs on there, but also more widely spaced. So it's going to ride through the mud and then clear it, sort of throw it out. Sort of dry tyres sometimes, once they get full of mud, that's when they become really bad. So dry tyres can work well in winter. If you're riding hard pack stuff, they can still work really well. It's just when you hit the soft stuff, they come sort of really unpredictable, and that's a big difference with a mud tyre. They can still work really well. If you've got a good mud tyre, still quite soft tread, it'll still grip on the hard pack stuff, even if it is a bit dry. But as soon as you get into soft, deep mud, they become way more predictable, and your bike just rides, I think, way more fun with mud tyres in the proper conditions. So I'm using Vittoria tyres. You can see actually most brands are the same. They'll give you like a sort of a range of where the tyre is really good. The Moto, this is the one that I use in the mud. You can see it's super wide space compared to the Mazda. They're a bit tighter, a bit more of a dry tyre. On the back, it tells you sort of loose, 9 out of 10, mud, it's 10 out of 10, wet, 10 out of 10. So you can always check out the brand that you're using. It'll tell you what it'd be good for. Riding when you don't have much grip is definitely going to improve your riding skills. You just got to try and take it a bit slowly, build them up gradually. If there's anything it will do, it's probably going to get you used to getting your bike moving around, or letting the bike move around, should I say, underneath you. With a lack of grip, especially something like this, it's kind of rocky as well, your tyres are going to move around a lot, and hopefully after a while, you're going to get comfortable with that. You've got to make sure your bike is set up as good as possible, so you've got the best tyres, but also so your bike is balanced. So it's not just going to slide on maybe the front wheel or the back. Hopefully your bike's going to feel like it moves and it slides two wheels almost the same. I think quite often when it's super muddy and rutty like it is here, you have to sort of forget about trying to be perfect like you would in dry conditions where you're railing corners. I try and more think about sort of making sure my body weight is leaning like with the trail. So obviously you've got a left and then a right hander. So I want to be leaning left, straighten up and then right, but it's never going to be perfect. You can see where people are sliding off these ruts. So the bike's going to be moving around, your weight's going to be moving around, but I really try and concentrate on just where my weight is. So it's following the trail. Yes, sometimes you'll slip a bit and your weight will go the wrong direction, but that's really my focus. Make sure weight is following the trail. I'm a big believer in just getting out there and riding your bike hard, whatever the weather. Get it super muddy, it's not just going to fall apart in the rain. However, the more you ride it in bad conditions, the more elbow grease you're going to have to put in. So make sure you're cleaning the bike properly. I sometimes think if the bike is really bad, taking the wheels out and getting in there with a brush is going to get into those parts of the frame that are otherwise quite hard, especially if it's sticky mud. So using some proper bike cleaner as well, get your bike super clean, and also drivetrain cleaner makes a big difference to how long your drivetrain lasts. If you can make sure it's clean and lubed after every ride. If you can only have one brush, then get a big soft one like that. It's great for doing the frame, getting that clean. But also, if you can, get one for the drivetrain, so much stiffer, getting in there, getting all that grime off there. And I've also got another one, a bit of a pokey one, to get in and clean the hubs. Also, as soon as I've washed it, I'll try and dry the bike off. You can either use a really soft, fleecy one like that, but I do try and keep one rag as like just a one for getting wet. I actually quite often just use an old towel. They're super good. Don't throw them away, use those to dry your bike off. And then I'll have another one, which is actually sort of my oily rag, because once I've dried it up, I'll then spray the bike down, either with bike protect, something like that, or silicone shine. Actually quite often that gets your bike super shiny, makes it look like new. And that's where I use that sort of oily rag to just wipe that off afterwards. So I keep one as just wet, one as oily. When you're riding in really wet or muddy conditions, you can get loads of spray coming up from your front wheel. So actually these little mud guards, we make GMBN ones, of course. You can make them yourself, or loads of other brands do them as well, but it's surprising how effective these little mud guards are at just stopping that from flicking up and coming back right into your eyes. Also, I like to run my clear lenses. You find most sort of sport specific or cycling, mountain biking glasses, you'll be able to switch the lenses. So it's good to have a set of sort of tinted ones, or ones that you can use in the sunshine. But also in winter, I really often use these clear ones. It's not so good when it's pouring down, because when you stop, they kind of steam up and you have to wipe them a bit. But hopefully if you've got a waterproof coat on, you can get to a dry layer, wipe them off. But when they're not raining, they are the best, and they really just save your eyes, because I have damaged my eyes as well. I've scratched my eyes before from getting mud in there, so you don't want that. But also just to be able to ride good and ride fast, you need to be able to see where you're going. Oh. The best thing to do to sort of protect your bike from the conditions is to make sure they're lubed up properly. Also full suspension bikes, if you've ridden in the rain a lot, or if you're jet washing your bike or just washing it a lot, eventually it's going to start washing the grease out of the bearings. So if you can do it before winter, but I'll still do this, I'll check on my bike during winter as well. With a full suspension bike, take it apart, have a look at the bearings and the pivots, just check on their condition. I can spin that, I feel it's nice and smooth. And just a really nice way of protecting them is making sure, rather than actually having to open them up and pack them with grease, hopefully they haven't got that far damaged, because if they are, you might need new bearings anyway. What I'll do is just sort of protect them with grease on the outside, just stop any water getting in there. Even if my bike isn't too muddy after a winter ride, I'll always make sure that my chain is cleaned, dried thoroughly with a rag, and then lubed up. Again, you've got different sort of styles of lubes you can use. Wet winter lube is much thicker and stickier, so it sort of really doesn't get washed away with the wet conditions compared to a dry summer lube. I know some mountain bike pros use Moto foam, so in their full suspension bikes they get this stuff. It's like just basically a sponge, and you sort of stick it in these bits where mud can collect. I've never done that, to be honest, so I always think that it sort of keeps the moisture in there so it gets into bearings. And I've always felt like it's a bit of a race thing where they put it there just so you don't get the added weight sticking to a bike. But I know people do that. I've never done it myself. But what I do like to do in winter is grips. Sometimes I like to put on, if it's going to be really muddy, put on some grips with sort of gnarlier, sticky out bits, if that makes sense. Basically, compared to my normal grips, these are the Ergons, the GE ones. They're kind of quite low profile, again, a bit like tyres. Get these are the GD ones, actually the downhill grips. You see on the bottom of the grip, you've got these big gnarly bits just sticking out a bit more. You get a bit more friction between that and your glove. Obviously, if it's raining in winter, a good waterproof coat is essential. But another top tip, if you live somewhere like the UK where sometimes it's wet for months on end, even though it's not raining when you're riding, quite often you'll get wet from the ground up. So a good set of waterproof winter shoes and waterproof trousers are some of the best things I've ever bought myself for winter riding. There you go. I think riding in the slop can be really good fun. As long as you sort of know that it's going to be a bit slower, it's going to be a bit more physical pedaling through the mud, and you're going to have loads of washing to do afterwards. I do think actually having somewhere good to wash your bike and your clothes makes your life so much easier and makes it just easier to get out and get muddy a lot. I know I've done that a load in the last few weeks, got muddy 3 or 4 times a week, and eventually you make a bit of a mess where you're washing your bike. But just get involved, get doing it. Let us know in the comments down below if you love riding in the mud.